Okay, we can all agree that this episode makes using this make sense.
It's a trap!
Ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Will, and welcome back to another spoiler review for The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 7, entitled The Spy. The Spy or Spies? I don't remember specifically, but it's one or the other. This is a spoiler review for the penultimate episode of Season 3, so if you haven't watched the episode yet, make sure that you pause this video, go watch the episode, and come back and hear my thoughts and opinions on said episode. And if this happens to be your first time checking out one of my videos, hi, my name is Will, and I do geeky stuff on the internet. I do reviews and reactions, discussions, some gaming, some drinking. Just like to have fun, and I hope you have fun and enjoy watching this particular video of me talking about another episode set in the galaxy far, far away. And if that happens to be your bag and you like to hear it from a geeky bear like myself, subscribe to the channel. It would really help me out and help this channel continue to grow as we get closer and closer to our finale. So The Mandalorian Season 3 has been a very different season compared to the first two seasons. The first two seasons had kind of a clear-cut story and clear-cut mission that they were going to tell in their 8-episode run. This season, however, has had a little bit more of a deviation from the norm, which is not a bad thing. It's taken time to tell more individual stories and highlight more individual characters than just Mando and Grogu. In all fairness, like the end of Season 2 left us at a very interesting point with the separation of Din Djarin and Grogu when Grogu went off with Luke Skywalker. Then we get the Book of Boba Fett, and things kind of get a little bit jumbled because 2 episodes of that, and in all fairness, even the finale of that kind of wraps up the cliffhanger that we got in Season 2. So Season 3, we started off with them just back together again. And by the end of Episode 3, even Din Djarin's story had kind of wrapped up. He had basically atoned for his transgression from his coven by removing his helmet. So by Episode 3, the story really wasn't about Din Djarin as the Mandalorian. It kind of shifted focus to Bo-Katan, and she's now the titular Mandalorian of this season, where most of the episodes since Episode 3 have really been focused on Bo-Katan's story and her reclaiming her fleet, her crew, and actually becoming pivotal in uniting these different sections of Mandalorians back together. This episode, it finally brought those two, at least these two particular sects of Mandalorians together back on Navarro from what we found out in Episode 6. Bo-Katan, now in possession of the Darksaber, is in a much more leadership role. They've got the people together. What's the next step? According to the episode, the next step is going to Mandalore and reclaiming it and actually trying to reseed the planet and try to build a home there again. That's basically where this episode shifts from Navarro to Mandalore. But before that, we also get a lot more reveals. We see Moff Gideon has returned, and he is still in communication with Elia Kane, who, of course, she was still working for Gideon. Her eliminating of Dr. Pershing was just tying up a loose end. And we also get the reveal that all of those individual Imperial remnants are actually working together and part of a shadow council. This is important because this is probably what leads to the development of the First Order that we see in the sequel trilogy. So the Shadow Council is basically communicating with each other. They're trying to work together, but also trying to stay under the radar of the New Republic in order to continue to gather forces. And Moff Gideon, of course, has his own plans and ideals. And we also get a very important name drop. We do get a name drop from one of the admirals about the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn. So if you haven't seen the Ahsoka trailer yet, I did a reaction to it, so check it out. Thrawn will be the main antagonist of the Ahsoka series, and we also understand with some of the reveals coming out of Star Wars Celebration from last weekend, their plan is to kind of culminate in, like, I don't want to say like an Avengers style thing, but culminate all these different storylines from these different series together. And I think a movie or a mini series that's going to see crossovers from Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, and Ahsoka all wrap up these individual stories with Thrawn and Moff Gideon. So that kind of puts another interesting twist on season 3, where season 3 isn't necessarily its own contained season. And we get all those seeds dropped in this episode, the episode before the finale. So we get to see all of those loose threads that were kind of sprinkled in through most of the episodes this season finally coming to a head in this episode, where Gideon has decided he's going to take care of the Mandalorians. So the title of the spy or spies, like most of the titles this season, have definitely had double meanings. Of course, Elia Kane was the spy within the New Republic for Gideon, but there's another thing with these titles that I've noticed is that usually they have two meanings. Like last episode, Guns for Hire. It was not only Bo-Katan and Din Djarin doing a job for the Lord and Lady of Plazir, but also the Guns for Hire, what the Mandalorians were currently doing before they reunited with Bo-Katan. So once they return to Mandalore, they actually encounter other Mandalorians who survived the Purge and had been living rather underground or moving along the surface of Mandalore for a number of years. They're able to unite with them and kind of travel together in order to locate the Forge, and that's where they're going to try to settle down, or at least begin to settle down. They do encounter a large creature that causes a number of them to be hurt, and the armorer, who was also with them on this mission, decides to take the injured people back to the fleet that is floating above the planet of Mandalore. Din Djarin, Bo-Katan, Paz Vizsla, and some of the other Mandalorians from both sides of the different coverts are continuing on with the local Mandalorians in order to find the Forge, so that they know where it is. The episode kind of does make a pretty big turn when they encounter Imperial combatants as they're exploring the underground ruins of Mandalore and where the Forge is. And these Imperial forces are a little bit different because they are actually wearing Beskar laced armor and seem very similar in design to the Mandalorians. So there's a big combat scene that happens there. They end up pushing the Imperials back, and this is where the episode gets a little weird for me. While they're driving the Imperial forces back, they start going through a facility that looks very Imperial on Mandalore, which is surprising considering Mandalore should have been mostly uninhabited. But they end up encountering Moff Gideon, as his base was underground on Mandalore. I don't know how long it's been there, especially if he's only just broken out not too terribly long ago. But yeah, they run into Moff Gideon, who also has his own sort of Beskar Wish.com version of Mandalorian armor on. And it ends up being a big old trap. Din Djarin gets captured as he's separated from the rest of the grouping. Before Moff Gideon could obtain the Darksaber from Bo-Katan, she initiates an escape using the saber, but in order to keep the other Imperial forces at bay, we see the sacrifice of Paz Vizsla, who holds them back long enough for everyone else to escape. And one of the sort of teases that we get, which also is a tie into the sequel trilogy, is that we see the Praetorian guards show up and actually execute Paz Vizsla. If you don't remember the Praetorian guards, they were the red guards with the energy weapons that Rey and Kylo Ren fought in The Last Jedi, which was actually a really dope scene. If you haven't seen Last Jedi, you should watch Last Jedi. Last Jedi is probably the best one of the sequel trilogy. Personal opinion, you can argue with me in the comments if you want. Please don't, but if you want to, fine. Pretty much how the episode ends for the most part. We see there was a trap and they got ambushed on Mandalore. Bo-Katan was able to escape with the other Mandalorians, and Grogu, who is rocking some very interesting armor, which is basically they took the IG-11 robot from episode 1 that they tried to fix and it didn't work. They ended up just making it into like an exoskeleton, so Grogu sits in it and rides around like a little mech, and he has a yes/no button like a dog. When the dog's upset, you just hit the button. Overall, the episode was fine, albeit felt kind of rushed to get to this point, because remember, we haven't seen Moff Gideon at all. We've heard rumors about him in previous episodes, but this is the first time we get to see him create a literal army of Imperial Mandalorians out of the blue. He even has his own armor. His helmet even looks like a Mandalorian helmet. It's like, you know how people would mock the MCU about the villains basically as a carbon copy of the hero in some of the movies? That's kind of what this felt like. It's fine. You got to level the playing field. I totally get it. It just feels a little wonky for me. About the title of the episode, we know that Elia Kane was the spy within the New Republic. There's a rumor going around just based off like brief rumblings that I've seen that the Armorer could be the Imperial spy within the Mandalorians because she could have tipped them off of them going to Mandalore. That would be very shocking to wrap up the season and would probably send Din Djarin down a weird spiral because his whole goal for this season was to get back into his convert with these other Mandalorians who follow the way, and being that the Armorer is the person that holds that creed so highly to have betrayed all of them, basically, it would just be kind of out of the blue, which would be very shocking, but it would also be kind of slightly a head scratcher for myself. Earlier in the episode, we get information that Bo-Katan was talking to the survivors who had been living on Mandalore, and they were kind of praising her for not giving in to the Empire. She admitted that she did in order to try to save her people. Moff Gideon, of course, betrayed that trust, and that's how he got possession of the Darksaber from Bo-Katan initially. And that sort of reveal and vulnerability that Bo-Katan presented really impressed Din Djarin to the point where he kind of swore allegiance to her, which is huge, and that could play a major role, especially if the Armorer turns out to be a spy. It'd be a crazy twist, especially with like Paz Vizsla. I'm probably butchering the guy's name. It was his sacrifice for the other Mandalorians to be, I don't want to say in vain, but he was always kind of the Armorer's right-hand person. And that would be like a real gut punch, especially for that. And I know they kind of spent some episodes this season really kind of humanizing his character. We saw that with episode 3 with his son being captured, and they all had to team up to take down the big raptor thing. I think that was episode 3. It might have been episode 4, actually. I mean, it's an interesting episode to say the least. Like, the humor in the episode was definitely from Grogu now basically having his own like mech that he pilots, and which does not seem super practical. It's cute. Super cute that you can kind of use it to kind of talk a little bit. But he just says yes or no, which got a little annoying in certain parts. But it was still kind of adorable. But the whole time it's like they're running through the mines and trying to escape thing. It doesn't have the maneuverability that his little bubble car had. And I'm like, that seemed... You could just put like guns and blasters on the bubble car and that probably would have been a safer ride than this freaking armor mech that just walks upright with them. But anyway, I get it. It was a cute thing for the episode. Overall, again, as an episode leading into a finale, it did its job. It set it up as a cliffhanger, and we know now what the finale is going to encompass. It's going to encompass them rescuing Din Djarin, trying to take down Moff Gideon and his forces, and that's basically it. It seems like a rush job, and I'm not opposed to a lot of what this season has done. A lot of the season has really tried different avenues, focused on different people, but it also definitely took time to set up a lot of things for future developing series or things that we would eventually see in like the sequel trilogy as well. Hints in the rise of the First Order, what actually led to the New Republic being blind to this growing Imperial / First Order military growth and things like that, how complacent they were, what's going to lead to Thrawn's return, since he's going to be a major part of the Ahsoka series. It just feels like season 3 is kind of just it's a setup for something else, and that's what it feels like. And up to like the first 6 episodes, to get characters to certain spots so that you can do this job with the finale. Like, I can't imagine Moff Gideon dying during the finale. That would just seem way out of the blue for everything that they've set up. So this season is really going to be, it's a prelude to something else. Where it's like season 1 and 2 had kind of their own overarching story in the 2 seasons, and then season 3 is a prelude to something greater. I feel like the finale is going to have like a cliffhanger or something, or it's going to be like there's going to be a post-credit scene that's going to lead directly into Ahsoka. It's a fine episode, but it kind of highlights some issues that this season has kind of struggled with, but we'll see if they can pull it off for the finale. So that's going to do it for this spoiler review. Thank you so much for checking it out. Let me know any thoughts you have on the episode and the season as a whole so far before we get to the finale in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this and all my videos. I really do appreciate it. Again, if you're new here and you happen to enjoy this video, please subscribe to the channel. It would really help me out. You can follow me on a lot of different social media platforms listed at the end of this video. I have a ton of videos on the channel you're more than welcome to check out. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I will see you next week for the finale. And until next time, may the Force be with you, and I will catch you later. See ya. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you did like this video, why not give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends? You can subscribe to the channel by clicking on my gorgeous little face right over there. You can follow me on all the various social media platforms right below. And last but certainly not least, if you've got a few extra minutes, why not check out one of the lovely videos floating right over here. Later.